sensation. We are a marriage ministry out of New Life at Calvary Church, located on 79th and Euclid Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm Katy Glenn.
And I'm Walter Glenn.
And we're glad to have you back for another session.
Amen.
Today we're going to be talking about spending in marriage. I know we talked before about money, finances, but this is just more in depth about spending as a couple and how to organize that in your marriage.
Yeah, because as couples, we can go into marriage and we're coming from totally different backgrounds.
Right.
And sometimes those backgrounds don't create a shared value, okay? And when we talk about money, we almost have to have, as a couple, we've got to have some kind of shared value about how we're going to spend our money, how we're going to appropriate our money. So, and as you know, there's the old adage of there's the spender and then there's the saver.
Right.
And it could be, I don't like to define it quite that succinctly, because I'll tell you, sometimes in some categories, I'm traditionally a saver, but I can be a spender. And in some categories, she's a spender, but she can be a saver. So it's kind of hard to define somebody as one or the other, but we tend to have one dominant characteristic where we'll say, I tend to spend more than the other person, and the other person says I tend to save more. So
now let me back up just a little bit on that. Walter was saying about where you came from, your background.
Mm-hmm.
In my family, my father he handled all the bills and that sort of thing. And I remember him having his own little budget. And he was a good saver because he taught me how to save. And my mother was a saver as well. She would spend on, the grocery bill. That was her major function right there with the budget. Just give me my food money and then I'll be okay. So I came from a family of savers, and so that's how I came into our marriage as a saver. Didn't want to, spend too much because I knew how important a budget was.
yeah, and when we talk about that, we're talking about basically forming an agreement.
Right.
An agreement as a couple as to how we're going to spend our money, how we're going to use that money, because there's only so much money to go around. And
right.
One thing we know is you can't outspend bad decisions. Bad decisions
right.
can cost you years of earning wages. So we have to come to an agreement, and it starts with a budget. Now, we did an earlier session that was much more detailed than we're going to be today about how to set up your budget. If you want to go back and look at it, feel free to do so. But it talks about how to really start with the snowball effect, where we go from the lowest bill to the highest bill. We pay them off and create room in our budget.
And what was that Dave Ramsey said about your money knowing every
dollar has a purpose.
Exactly. Every dollar has
every
a purpose.
Every dollar has a purpose. I
right.
mean, because and I think you find that, Katie, when you deal with people who just save, and there's no objective for the money.
Right.
You look up and they get to sort of the midpoint of their life or the end of their life, and they've got $400,000-$500,000, and they didn't have a purpose for the money. They didn't have anything that they really chose to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we decided early on in our marriage was that tithing, which is giving 10% of your income that you make to God, was important for us. That was just very important for us. So we decided that was something we were going to do just off the top of our money. We were going to tithe our income to our local church, and in this case, it's New Life at Calvary.
Yes.
And so that was an important step for us. Now, we did run into some problems. Even though I had a budget, and I can show you our budget sheet, it's about 32 items long, and we budget everything down to pretty much a science. But there were some irritations early on coming from different situations we had. One was just that my wife, you explain this about how you felt.
Since Walter was what we call the CFO,
Chief Financial Officer
of our budget, I didn't really care about the money or whatever. I knew it was coming in, and I know he was handling it. But there came a time when I thought, you know what? I don't have any money to go get my nails done, get my hair done without having to ask Walter, hey, do we have money in the budget for me to, get my hair done and my nails done?
Amen.
And that built up like really a resentment that he was handling all this money. I worked every day, but I wasn't seeing, the bills are being paid, the kids' tuition was being paid, but there was nothing for me personally. It may sound a little bit selfish, but you should have your own spending money.
Exactly.
And so we decided to allocate a part of our budget to an allowance for me, so that there was money that I could do with whatever I wanted to. I didn't have to answer to anyone. And that just really took this burden off of my shoulders. And I still wasn't really interested in the budget. I just wanted to make sure I was getting my fair share, if you want to call it that way. But that caused a little resentment in our marriage, and we were able to talk it out and figure out what that problem was.
Yeah, Katy needed a line item in our budget.
Right.
She needed a line. She needed to be in our budget. She needed to be on our budget sheet where she had a set amount of money that she could just spend however she wanted, and that worked wonders, in relieving the tension in the marriage. Because see, I quite frankly don't have a line item on our budget. I don't take an allowance because I just use miscellaneous money and other little monies that I'll come up against, or that I'll make on the side. But it was important for my wife to know that, hey, whatever this set amount is, whether it's $300, $400 a month, that's my money. I can go do my hair and nails. I don't have to worry about, is it in the budget?
Right.
Am I hurting the budget by doing it? And so that was important for her. Now, Katy has another thing that we did where we kind of, I started out doing the budget, but I have to be honest with you, for the last 5 years, I have not done the budget. She's done the budget. And there's a reason why.
Now, initially, I was not interested in the budgeting or anything like that, anything financial. I just let him handle that so I don't have to worry about it, because I was on my own for a little while, taking care of my finances and all that. Probably wasn't doing a great job, but I just kind of resisted. I didn't want to be in charge of that. I didn't want to know about it or anything like that. And Walter kept trying to bring me into our family meetings with, this is the budget and this, that, and I would be like, oh boy, here we go, I'm really not interested in it. And it would irritate him that I wasn't as interested in it as he was. But I don't know what happened, but it's like a light bulb went off. And I said, you know what, I really do need to know what's going on with the budget, where the money is, where it's going. And once I really became intentional about learning the budget, it just opened my eyes, and I realized, hey, I really know what's going on in our family. I really know what's going on with the budget. So whoever is the CFO, the other person needs to know, because anything could happen to any one of us, and if you don't know what's going on, you're out there stranded. You don't know what to do. You don't know where to get help. But if you're in the mix right when you're married and everything is going okay, then you know what's going on and you know where the money is going. Like every dollar has
a purpose.
A purpose. And knowing that just kind of frees me up to know what I can do or what I can't do, along with my own allowance. It just made life easier.
Well, and I think also it helped us as a couple, because now you see, okay, initially I did the budget and I did it for many years, and now for the last 5 or 6 years you've done the budget and I haven't even had to look at it because you do it.
We work on it together.
There's certain sections we work on together, like our long range goals we work on it together, but the day-to-day budget is that's her responsibility, and she does it, and I don't really look at it that much. I can glance at it and see what's going on, but because I know the budget backwards and forwards, but it's really her responsibility. That's something she has taken on doing, and I just love the fact that she loves doing it now, because
Yes.
it has really helped us as a couple. Now, there's certain things, rules that we've kind of put in place with our budget to go beyond our budget. And one of the rules is, just because you have it, does that really mean you have it? Okay, and I know that sounds confusing, but I'll give you an example. We're saving for flooring right now. Okay, we want to redo our entire flooring and change out carpet and go to hardwood floors and things like that. Okay, so we know that's going to take a set amount of money, and let's just hypothetically throw out the number $4,000 to do what we want to do. Okay, we have saved in a line item in our budget $4,000. Okay, now here's one of the things I would recommend that you do before you go out there and jump into those hardwood floors. Okay, in our case, put the money in a separate account, transfer it into a separate account. And we have several accounts that we use for certain purposes, not just our general account. So transfer the money into a separate account and let it sit there for 2 months. And then, okay, if in fact nothing happens during that 2 months and you still have it and you still have that desire to get the hardwood floors, because let's face it, sometimes our desires change. We say,
Right.
man, I wanted that new car, and all of a sudden the old car starts running well, and we're like, well, did we really need that new car? And
Right.
so you
Or
say,
for, excuse me, jump in here, or for us ladies who like to shop, you know, there be something really expensive like a Gucci bag or something
Yeah.
that costs so much money, and it's like when you really don't have the money, it's almost like it just grabs at you that, yeah, you really ought to get that. You ought to, you know, just charge it, and then you don't have to worry about it. But when in fact you save up for it, you put that money away, and then when you have enough to go and buy it, and you know everything else is going on in your budget, in your bills and all that sort of thing, you get to a point where, you know, gee, do I really want to spend this money on this Gucci bag now?
and you know what happens there? I think it's, you sort of weigh, really, is this really important? Is this really a priority?
Right. Do I really want
or can I
this?
just go to Higbee's and get a nice bag instead of the Gucci bag for $1,200? Can I get a $400 or $300 bag from Higbee's or Kohl's?
Yeah.
And so once you save the money and you let it sit there for a while, it does wonders with sort of transforming our thought process
Right.
into, do we really need this? Now, if you really feel like after it sat there for 2 months, hey, I want those floors, then go get them.
Right.
Because you've saved up for it, and that was the purpose of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think another rule is that we do is that we base things on our situation.
Right.
We cannot base things on other people's situations.
Because you really don't know. They could be buying that, you know, $1,200 Gucci bag, and then they really can't afford it, but you know, because you don't know how their finances are. But then, you know, down the road, it shows up that, you know, you probably really shouldn't have bought that bag because their finances are not as good as they thought they were, or even what we think. Again, we have to look at our own situation.
I think you can never look at other people from the outside. You can't get stuck into the keeping up with the Joneses, because you don't know what the Joneses are doing.
Right.
You don't know if the Joneses hit the lotto last week.
Right.
You don't know if somebody died and left them an inheritance. You don't know if they just don't care about how their money, you know.
Right, they just spend,
we spend, and
whether
you know
they have it or not.
You know, so we don't know. So keeping up with other people is just something that we've determined that no, we're going to base everything on what our situation is, what our bills are, what our income is, and it's been very helpful in just sort of balancing out what we need.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to kind of sort of summarize everything up, we decided that what was important for us was to tithe it, to define it, what do we really need, what do we really want, to understand what the consequences are when we get something. Okay, there's a consequence. Okay, does that mean, you know, it's like eating that piece of cake. If you're a jogger, you eat the piece of cake and you think, okay, now I got to jog a little extra tonight.
Right.
It's the same thing. When you add on debt, we've got to sit there and say, okay, now how much is this going to cost us in extra work or some type of stress on our household? So And then we've got to communicate it. We've got to communicate what's really important. What do we really want?
We have to talk it out between the two of us, and again, going back to the beginning, have an agreement of what we're going to do with the money.
We would emphasize, have a plan for your money, have a purpose for your money.
Right.
It needs to, every dollar should have a purpose. And when we really, really, really get down to it, we want to have a God-centered value of money.
Right.
We've got to say to ourselves, ultimately, how much is enough?
Right.
Or what's enough for us? Because obviously you can go get a pair of $39 tennis shoes, or you can get a pair of tennis shoes. I've seen tennis shoes that cost over $1,000. So we have to define what do we need to base our needs on. So we would emphasize.
And one last thing is that it's something that we do. We recommend it, but whatever works for you, is that we put our money together into one pot so that we can pay the bills, we can save, and it's all our money is together because we are working together for our plan or what our purpose is for our money. Some people have separate accounts.
Or they pay individual
or
bills.
They pay individual
you
bills.
take these
Whatever,
3 bills,
yeah.
I'll take those 3 bills, and then we'll separate it out like that.
Right.
But
we put ours,
if it works for you,
right,
that
exactly.
works. But
we put
ours together. We recommend that because everybody knows where the money's at, where it's going, how it's being allocated.
Right.
So that's our plan for couples. Please, during this pandemic and coming, it seems like we were almost out of it, but now we're sort of back in it again. And so money situations can become very, very stressful, very, very tight. So we would urge you, pray over your use of your money. Really, really look diligently at how our money's being used, plan it out, purpose it out, and always include God in that mix.
Right.
So thank you for watching, and until next time, we want your marriage to be
sensational.